The date is February 24th, 1978. It's a Friday night, dead of winter, Northern California. We're looking at a map here of the Plumas National Forest, and to really get a sense of the atmosphere, I want you to imagine absolute darkness. The temperature is just plummeting, heading towards freezing, and the snow is packed hard, creating this landscape that's, well, it's beautiful, but it's incredibly hostile. And high up, way up in the Sierra Nevada foothills, on this rutted, rocky logging trail that's technically closed for the season, a car sits abandoned.
And it's not just any car. We're looking at the actual crime scene photos here. It's a turquoise and white 1969 Mercury Montego. The engine's cold, the doors are unlocked, and one of the windows is down. And the five men who were inside it, five best friends just driving home from a basketball game, they've completely vanished into the tree line.
It honestly sounds like the opening scene of a horror movie or, a campfire legend. But what we are looking at today, this isn't folklore. We are conducting an investigative review of the case files for what is, I think, arguably the most baffling disappearance in American history. This is the case of the Yuba County Five, and our mission today isn't just to retell the story that you think you know. We're not doing the ghost story version.
No, absolutely not. We're treating this as a homicide investigation.
Hmm.
We are reviewing the case files, the actual autopsy reports, the topographical maps, witness statements, and specifically, we have a stack of recently surfaced documents from a Change.org petition and some legal inquiries. And these documents suggest this wasn't just some tragedy of errors. We're looking at evidence of a cover-up. So the objective here is to reconstruct the timeline and really analyze the anomalies that just do not add up.
Exactly. This case is often called the American Dyatlov Pass, right? After those Russian hikers found dead in really mysterious circumstances. But honestly, the Yuba County Five might be even stranger. You have five grown men, often referred to as the boys by their families because of their intellectual disabilities, who vanish on what should have been a routine snack run. They're eventually found months later in conditions that they defy all logic.
Defy logic is the perfect phrase for it, because when you lay out the forensics, like we're about to do, and I mean nothing fits the "they got lost by accident" narrative. You've got a car that shouldn't be where it is in a condition it shouldn't be in. You have men starving to death in a room that is literally full of food. And then you have a police department that, decades later, appears to be shredding files just as new transparency laws go into effect. So yeah, let's strip away the myth. Let's just look at the raw data.
Okay, let's unpack that. Before we even get to the horror on the mountain, we really need to understand who is in that car. Because the media back in 1978, I mean, they really did a number on these guys, didn't they? They were painted as helpless, almost like children.
They were, and it's a gross oversimplification that, frankly, really hurt the investigation at the time. It let law enforcement just sort of shrug and say, well, they didn't know any better. But these were men. They had lives, they had jobs, specific psychological profiles. We need to profile the Gateway Gators. That was their basketball team. They were friends. They had a whole dynamic.
A team. Let's start with the driver, Jack Madruga. He's 30 years old.
Jack Madruga is absolutely crucial to understanding the first big anomaly, which is the car itself. We'll get to that. He wasn't diagnosed with an intellectual disability in, a clinical sense. He was just considered slow by the standards of the time. But look at his record here in the file. He served in the U.S. Army. He was a truck driver. He held down a job. And he was the owner of that 1969 Mercury Montego.
And from what I've read in all the family statements, he didn't just own that car, he worshipped it.
It was his pride and joy. Absolutely. He kept it pristine. No dents, no scratches, always washed and waxed. He was known to drive miles out of his way just to avoid a gravel road. I mean, there's a specific report in here where he once refused to drive his friend Jackie all the way home because the road to Jackie's house was too bumpy. He made him walk the last stretch. This is a guy who knew his vehicle, and he protected it obsessively. That personality trait is a key piece of evidence.
Okay, then you have Bill Sterling, 29, Madruga's best friend.
Right. Sterling was deeply religious, a very gentle soul. He'd spend time reading the Bible to patients in hospitals. But he had a very specific phobia that's really relevant to our profile. He hated the outdoors, absolutely hated the cold. He was the kind of guy who just wanted to be inside, warm, safe. The idea of Bill Sterling voluntarily going for a midnight hike in a snowstorm, it's completely out of character. It goes against his fundamental nature.
Then there's Ted Weir, 32 years old. They called him the friendly giant.
And he was. A big guy, about 200 pounds. Very friendly, but he's the one who probably fits the profile of lacking common sense or executive function the most. There's a famous anecdote in the file about Ted that really illustrates his mindset. One night, His family home caught on fire. His brother rushes into his room to save him, and Ted is still in bed. He refuses to get up because he has work in the morning and he needs his sleep. Well, the ceiling is literally burning above his head.
That's terrifyingly literal thinking. He couldn't prioritize the immediate life-threatening danger over the established rule of, I need to sleep for work.
Exactly. He needed guidance. He lacked that basic survival instinct of danger equals move. And attached to Ted's hip was Jackie Hewitt, the youngest, at 24.
Jackie was the most dependent of the group, wasn't he?
By far, yes. He couldn't dial a telephone by himself. He had a severe speech impediment, and he relied really heavily on Ted for social cues, for physical protection. Where Ted went, Jackie went, period.
And that brings us to the fifth man, the outlier, Gary Mathias.
Gary Mathias, 25. This is where the case gets really complex. Gary did not have an intellectual disability. He was of average, maybe even above average intelligence. He was an Army veteran stationed in West Germany. But he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. He had a history of drug use in the military, a history of violence when he was unmedicated assault, property damage. He had a rough past.
But, and this is a huge but that we need to stress, he had been stable for 2 years leading up to this night.
Correct. Completely stable. He was taking his meds faithfully, Stilzene and Cogentin. He was working for his stepfather's landscaping business. He was, by all accounts, the leader of this group, the one the others looked to for protection. So you have 4 gentle, somewhat dependent men, and 1 capable but historically volatile man who is at this moment completely stable. That's the crew in the car.
So set the scene for that night, the night they disappear, February 24th, 1978.
It's a night of celebration for them. They drive from their homes in Yuba City to Chico, which is about 50 miles north, to watch a college basketball game. UC Davis versus Chico State. They are ecstatic because the very next day, Saturday, they have their own tournament. The Gateway Gators are playing for a chance to win a week-long trip to Disneyland.
Disneyland. I mean, the motivation to get home and get a good night's sleep is massive. They have their jerseys laid out on their beds. These guys are not looking to run away.
0 flight risk.
Yeah.
Absolutely none. So they watch the game. UC Davis wins. They leave the arena in high spirits. They stop at a place called Bear's Market in Chico just before 10 p.m. And we have witness testimony from the clerk, Mary. They buy Hostess fruit pies, lemon and cherry Snickers, a Marathon bar, some Pepsi, and a quart of milk.
A quart of milk. Just guys loading up on sugar for the ride home.
Exactly. The clerk says they were happy, no signs of distress. They walk out the door, get into Madruga's Turquoise Mercury, and head south towards Yuba City. And it is a straight shot down Highway 99. It's flat, it's easy, 50 miles. An hour drive, tops. They should have been in their beds by 11:00 p.m.
But they never make it home. And this is where it gets so strange because they don't just, crash off the side of Highway 99.
No. 4 days later, on February 28th, a park ranger finds the car. But he doesn't find it on Highway 99. He finds it 70 miles off course, way, way up in the Plumas National Forest on the Oroville-Quincy Road.
I really want you to visualize this. This isn't just taking a wrong turn. To get here, you have to miss your exit, keep driving for miles, turn onto a winding mountain road, and then climb to 4,400 feet of elevation. You're passing the snow line. You are deep in the wilderness.
And this brings us to the first massive anomaly, the car. I've looked at the reports on this vehicle over and over, and this is the smoking gun for me.
Yeah.
The car was found stuck in a snowdrift, but only barely. I mean, the snow wasn't that deep.
Yeah.
5 healthy men could have easily pushed it out. The tires were just spinning on some ice.
But they didn't even try.
There was no evidence of a concerted effort to push it. No mud splattered on the quarter panels, nothing. But more importantly, let's talk about the condition of the undercarriage. Remember Jack Madruga, the guy who wouldn't drive on gravel? This car had driven dozens of miles up a rutted, rocky, unpaved logging road in the pitch black of night.
You'd expect the suspension to be wrecked, the muffler torn off, the oil pan completely dented.
The undercarriage was pristine. Not a single scratch. No mud packed into the wheel wells in a way that suggests high speed or panic. This implies one of 2 things. Either Jack Madruga drove his most prized possession up that mountain at a snail's pace, inching along for hours, or someone else drove it. Someone who knew that road perfectly.
Or what if someone was controlling the pace, like they were being escorted up the mountain?
That's the herding theory. If you were being chased, you drive fast and reckless, you damage the car. If you're being herded, forced to drive by someone behind you, or maybe even someone in the car with you, you might drive carefully. But let's look at the car's state when it was found. The gas tank was a quarter full, so they didn't run out of gas. The engine started right up when the police hotwired it. But get this, here are the strange details. The car was unlocked. One window, the driver's side back window, was rolled all the way down.
In February, in the mountains, in freezing weather.
Freezing temperatures. Why on earth roll the window down? And the keys were missing? They were not in the ignition.
I remember reading they were found later.
Much later. In Jack Madruga's pocket when they found his body. So picture this. They drive up a mountain they have no business being on. The car gets slightly stuck. They turn off the engine. Madruga takes the keys, puts them in his pocket. They leave the car unlocked, windowed down, and simply walk away into a blizzard, leaving behind a working heater and shelter.
That just screams fear to me. You don't leave a warm car in a snowstorm unless you are more afraid of what's at the car than you are of the weather itself.
Precisely. If they were just lost, they would sit in the car, they'd run the heater until the gas ran out. You wait for morning. Abandoning the vehicle implies they were fleeing or were forced out. And they didn't take the maps. The road maps were sitting right there in the glove box, untouched. They didn't even look at them.
So they're walking into the dark, no maps, no winter gear. I mean, you have to remember they're in light jackets and basketball shoes, and they are heading deeper into the forest. But they weren't the only ones on that mountain that night.
And this brings us to the witness. Let's call him the unreliable narrator, Joseph Schoen.
This part of the file always gives me the creeps. So Joseph Schoen is a local man who had driven his VW Beetle up that same road earlier that evening.
He claims he was checking the snow line for a family ski trip he was planning. He gets his little Beetle stuck in the snow, miles down the road from where the boys would eventually stop. He tries to push it out, overexerts himself, and suffers what he believes is a massive heart attack. So now he's in severe pain, stuck in his car, terrified he's going to die up there.
He's just sitting there in the dark, in agony, and then he sees lights.
Yep. Around 11:30 p.m., maybe midnight. His timeline's a little fuzzy. He sees headlights pull up behind him. It's the Mercury Montego. He sees it stop. He sees a group of men get out.
And he must have thought, thank God, rescue.
Exactly. He starts yelling for help. Hey, help me, I'm having a heart attack.
Yeah.
But the moment he yells, the lights go out.
That is just chilling.
He says the talking stopped. The headlights cut. Absolute silence. He mentions hearing a whistling noise, like someone whistling for a dog. That just nothing. He sits there all night in his car, freezing in pain, until he eventually manages to walk down the mountain in the morning.
Thanks, Schoen. He isn't exactly the most credible witness, is he?
No, not at all. He was known in town as a bit of a storyteller, maybe a bit of a drinker. His story changed multiple times. At one point, he said he saw a woman holding a baby. At another point, he said he saw 12 people. He was in extreme medical distress, possibly hallucinating from pain or cold, so you have to take it with a huge grain of salt.
But here's the thing, and it's a big thing. He did describe the Mercury Montego to police before they officially found it. He knew it was up there.
That's the one detail you can't ignore. He saw the car. But there's another detail Schoen mentioned. Then he retracted it, then he mentioned it again. A red pickup truck.
The red truck, this comes up more than once in the files, doesn't it?
It does. He claimed at one point he saw a red pickup parked behind the Montego. And later, score clerks in the nearby town of Brownsville, miles away, claimed they saw the boys 2 days after they disappeared, and they arrived in a red pickup truck.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, was the red truck hurting them? Did they get transferred from the Mercury to the truck, or was the truck the threat that made them abandon their car in the first place?
It raises the fundamental question, were they alone on that mountain? Schoen's testimony, however flawed, suggests they weren't. But let's move to the discovery. Because the car is just the beginning of this whole anomaly. The search goes on for months, blizzard conditions hit, they find nothing. Until the thaw.
June 4th, 1978. A group of bikers is just riding through the forest, about 19 miles deeper into the wilderness from where the car was found. They stumble across an old Forestry Service trailer.
And this is where the story shifts from a mystery to a genuine psychological horror. The bikers notice a window is broken from the outside. They smell something terrible. They look inside, and they find a body.
It's Ted Weyer, the friendly giant.
It's Ted. He is lying on a bed in the trailer. And the condition of the body tells this devastating story. He is wrapped in 8 separate sheets. And the way they're wrapped, they're tucked in tight around his head and his shoulders.
Like someone tucked him in for the night.
Someone was caring for him. Ted had severe gangrene in his feet from frostbite. He couldn't walk. He couldn't have tucked himself in like that. But here's the horror. Ted weighed 200 pounds when he disappeared. When they found his body, he weighed barely 100 pounds. He had starved to death.
But wasn't there food in that trailer? I thought this trailer was stocked.
That is the absolute tragedy of it all. They were in a trailer stocked for the Forestry Service for winter. Outside, there was a large propane tank and it was full. All they had to do was turn a single valve, and they would have had heat and a gas stove. They never touched it.
So they froze to death in a trailer that had a working heating system.
Yes. Inside, there was a fireplace. There were books and paper everywhere. They could have easily started a fire. They didn't. And food. There was a metal storage locker that contained enough dehydrated military-grade food to feed all 5 men for an entire year.
And they didn't eat it.
The locker was unopened. It had a flimsy little latch. I mean, you could pop it with a screwdriver or just a strong pull. It was untouched. Instead, they found that the men had eaten about 36 cans of old military C rations that were just scattered around.
And C rations require a specific kind of opener, don't they? A P-38 can opener?
They do. It's a tiny little metal device. And guess who would know how to use a P-38? The Army veterans. Madruga or Matthias.
So we know at least one of the veterans was there, but why starve? I mean, why freeze? It makes no sense.
This is where we have to debate the why. One theory is this idea of learned helplessness. Maybe they saw the food was government property and thought they weren't allowed to eat it. Maybe they thought the gas tank was off limits. But remember, Gary Matthias was there. He was smart. He was a survivalist type. He wouldn't just let them all starve because of a rule.
Unless it wasn't about rules at all. Unless it was about fear.
Explain what you mean.
If you think you are being hunted, if you think the people in that red truck are still out there looking for you, do you light a fire? Do you make smoke that can be seen for miles? Do you turn on a noisy gas valve? No. You hide in the dark. You eat the food you can open quietly. You huddle under sheets and pray no one finds you.
You become a prisoner of your own fear. It's a compelling theory. It would explain the lack of fire, the lack of noise. It explains why they didn't try to hike out immediately. They were hiding.
Let's talk about the others. Ted is in the trailer. Where are the rest of the Gateway Gators?
Once the snow melted, the search teams went back out and they found them. Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling were found about 11 miles from the car on the road that was leading toward the trailer.
11 miles. That is a brutal, brutal hike in tennis shoes in the snow.
It is. They were reduced to bones, scavenged by animals. But Madruga was found still holding his watch. It looks like they just sat down to rest and simply never got up. Hypothermia likely took them long before they reached the trailer.
And Jackie Hewitt? Ted's shadow?
Jackie was found closer to the trailer, just a couple of miles away. And there's a detail from the case files that is just, it's heartbreaking. Jackie's father was part of the search party. He saw his son's denim jacket on the ground. He went to pick it up, and the spine fell out.
Oh, God. That is a grim image.
He had been completely scavenged. But his shoes, actually, let me correct that. Gary Matthias' shoes were found in the trailer.
Wait. Gary's shoes were in the trailer with Ted?
Yes. Gary Matthias' tennis shoes were inside the trailer, next to Ted Waher's body. But Ted Waher's leatherwork boots were missing from the scene.
And Gary Matthias is the only one they never, ever found.
He's the missing man. The evidence suggests a swap. Ted's feet were swollen from frostbite. Horribly swollen, according to the autopsy. He probably couldn't wear his own boots anymore. Gary's canvas tennis shoes were likely wet and frozen. So it's very likely Gary took Ted's sturdy leather boots because Gary was preparing to leave.
So the prevailing theory for a long time was this. Gary Matthias, the survivalist, keeps Ted alive as long as he can. He's the one who tucks him in. He opens the C rations. But eventually the food runs out, or Ted succumbs to starvation, and Gary decides to make a run for it. He puts on the better boots and walks out into the snow to find help.
And he likely dies somewhere in that vast wilderness where his body just hasn't been found to this day. That is the heroic theory.
But there's a darker theory, isn't there? The Matthias did it theory. People look at his history with schizophrenia as past violence and they just say, he snapped, he led them all up there, he killed them.
It's the easy answer, but it just doesn't fit the evidence in the trailer. If Gary snapped, why did he tuck Ted in? Why did he open cans for him for weeks? The scene in that trailer speaks of care, not malice. And you have to remember, Gary was medicated. He had been stable for 2 years. Schizophrenia doesn't just turn you into a mastermind villain overnight, especially not when you're freezing and starving to death.
But there is a villain in this story, or at least a new suspect has emerged, and this is where we get into the new files.
Yes. For decades, the official line from Yuba County was accidental death. They got lost, they panicked, they died. Case closed. But recently, thanks to that change.org petition and the release of new documents under California's transparency laws, the entire narrative has shifted. We are entering the realm of conspiracy, but it's conspiracy backed by official paper.
Let's talk about the 2019 memo. This is really recent history.
I have a copy of it right here. November 15, 2019. It's an internal memo from the Yuba County Sheriff's Office, and it explicitly states, quote, Gary Mathias is considered a victim of foul play.
Foul play, not accident. Victim of foul play.
And the memo continues with a directive, and this is the really stunning part. Quote, it is in the best interest of all involved that this letter not be forwarded to Mathias's family.
Whoa. So they officially classify him as a murder victim and then issue an order that his own family is not to be told. That is the literal definition of a cover-up.
It gets worse. In July of 2019, just months before this memo was written, California passed Senate Bill 1421. It's a law that requires police departments to release records on cold cases and officer misconduct. And just as this law is taking effect, the Yuba County Sheriff's Office destroys the physical files for Gary Mathias's old criminal cases from the 70s.
They shredded the evidence.
They replace the physical files with a new electronic file that is conveniently sparse on details. Why would you destroy records on a 40-year-old cold case unless there was something in there you don't want the public to see?
And the petition, it mentions a specific name, a suspect, Gary Dale Whiteley.
This is the new angle that changes everything.
Yeah.
Gary Dale Whiteley was Gary Mathias's brother-in-law, a man with a documented history of extreme violence.
We're talking really bad stuff.
Assault with great bodily injury.
Oh.
But here's the kicker. In 1994, a witness named William Prater went to the police. He claimed that Whiteley had confessed to him. Whiteley allegedly said that he had killed a girl and was also responsible for the death of 2 of 7 mentally disabled men in the hills 17 years ago.
2 of 7. The numbers are a little off. There were 5 men, but the profile is a perfect match. Mentally disabled men in the hills.
And the timing matches. So, Prater makes this report. Does the sheriff's office launch a massive investigation into Whiteley? No. The report gets buried. Whiteley goes on to become this sort of redeemed figure in the community, running a ministry, even speaking at law enforcement events.
So just to be clear, you have a violent relative of one of the victims who allegedly confesses to killing mentally disabled men in the hills, and the police do nothing. And then in 2019, they admit internally that it was foul play, but actively hide it from the family.
And this brings us right back to the red truck. Remember Joseph Schoen? He saw a red pickup. Other witnesses saw the boys in a red pickup. Was Gary Dale Whiteley driving a red pickup that night? Was he the one herding them up that mountain?
This changes the entire reconstruction of that night. Let's try to piece this together with this new information.
Okay. If we synthesize the old theories with these new documents, here's the most plausible scenario. The boys leave the market in Chico. They're happy, they're eating pies. Somewhere between the market and the highway, they are intercepted.
Maybe by Whiteley? Maybe he sees Gary Mathias and there's some kind of bad blood there?
Could be. Or maybe it was just a chance encounter that went horribly wrong. They are forced to drive, get in the car, drive up the mountain. They're being chased or led by the red truck.
They get to the snow line, the car gets stuck, the red truck is right there behind them, just like Joseph Schoen saw in his story.
The boys panic. They bail out of the car. They flee into the woods, avoiding the road because the men in the truck are on the road. They're trying to get away.
Madruga and Sterling, the least suited for this kind of trek, they collapse and die first from exposure.
And Gary Mathias, the survivalist, he grabs Ted and Jackie. He knows they need to find shelter. He leads them deeper away from the road until he finds that forestry trailer.
They get inside, but they are terrified. They think Whiteley, or whoever it is still out there hunting them, so they don't light a fire, they don't make a sound, they just huddle in the dark eating cold rations.
Ted dies. Jackie likely dies soon after. And Gary, now he's out of meds, he's desperate, maybe he's hearing things. He takes the boots and tries to walk out. Or the other possibility is the killers eventually found him at the trailer.
It explains the fear, it explains their bizarre route, and it explains the cover-up. Because if the police knew Whiteley did it, or was a prime suspect, and they let him walk, if they ignored Prater's confession, that is a massive, massive liability.
And let's not forget the Brady list. A lot of the original officers who worked on this case back in '78 are now on what's called the Brady list. That's a list of officers with documented credibility issues. Dishonesty, corruption. The investigation was likely botched from day one.
It's just so tragic. We always focus on the spooky elements, the ghosts of the mountain. But the real horror here seems to be systemic. It's human.
The tragedy is that Ted Weher lived for up to 3 months. He lay in that trailer, starving, freezing, waiting for a rescue that wasn't coming, while the police were possibly ignoring solid leads or just mishandling the entire search.
The image that will always stick with me is that food locker. A year's supply of food just inches away from them, and they were too afraid or too confused to open it.
It's a testament to how fear can paralyze you more effectively than any physical restraint ever could.
So what does this all mean for us today, looking back at this file?
It means the case isn't closed. That 2019 memo says open missing person homicide. They know it was homicide. The families deserve the truth about that memo. They deserve to know why files were destroyed. They deserve answers.
Absolutely. You look at those faces, the Gateway Gators, smiling in their basketball uniforms, and you realize they were failed. They were failed by the people who chased them up that mountain, failed by the original investigation, and then failed again by a bureaucracy that seems to have hidden the truth for decades.
And that raises the most important question of all, the one we should leave you with. Go for it.
If the Yuba County Sheriff's Department knows Gary Mathias was a victim of foul play, and they have a confession on file from a relative with a history of violence, why are they still, to this day, seemingly protecting the reputation of a potential killer, instead of giving closure to the families of the 5 men who died in the dark?
That is a question that demands an answer. This has been The Deep Dive.
I'm Jack Mercer.
And I'm Silas Black. The file is open, but the truth might have been shredded. Stay curious, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next Deep Dive.